Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Panther New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always by my co-host Nick Filato. I'm attempting a few new intros here because I've seen some people whining about how loud I am on the intro, and I adhere to some of these whinings, and then they call me the whiner. But you are the whiners. And I whine myself sometimes too. That's
Really?
life. Sometimes you need to vent. Sometimes you need to whine. But today we're doing neither of the two. We are breaking down the Giants roster. We've done this, I think, in the past, Nick. It's always a fun exercise. We're going to rank the Giants offense for today. We'll do defense in a follow-up pod by position groups. Which position groups do we feel are the strongest and why? Nick, I will let you choose right now on the spot. Would you like to go from your best to worst or your worst to best?
I think we should go from worst to
Okay.
best. And the way we have this broken down is 7 position groups. So you have offensive tackle, offensive guard, center, tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback. So let's start with the worst. I'll go first. I think we're probably going to share the worst one, and that is the center group. Right now, you're looking at John Michael Schmitz as your starter. Behind him is Austin Schlottman, Jimmy Morrissey, and you also have Brian Hudson, who they brought in as an undrafted, or no, he's not undrafted, but they brought him in as well, probably just a camp body type of individual. John Michael Schmitz, that is your starter. Now, Greg Van Roten, there's a possibility he could kick over. Marcus Bowe, there's a possibility he could kick over and play center. But right now, we're operating under the assumption that it's more than likely going to be JMS and then Schlottman, if Schlottman could stay healthy. I believe he got injured at some point last season. It's not a strong center room. It really is not. We expected it to be. The Giants invested a top 55 or 50 or 60 pick in John Michael Schmitz, and he hasn't necessarily lived up to it through 2 seasons. I think this is a make or break year for it. If you're looking at the Giants offense, you say, what is the weak point? Like where is there a lack of a difference maker or somebody that you're like, this guy doesn't necessarily inspire a lot of confidence? It's at that center position. So to me, it's an easy choice at the center is the worst position group on offense.
We have the same pick here, Nick. It was between two groups for me, but center won out as the worst for me. For the reasons you broke down, when it comes to JMS, I think you're right. It is a make or break season as far as him just starting and still playing on this team. The issue for me is with JMS, the expectation is that he can get to a higher level. Obviously, why would you ever invest 57 at a onesie position like center if you didn't think he can get to a higher level? But when you enter year 3, it's harder to believe that he can. Now, could he? Yes, he can. If they use him more on the move, I think, if he benefits from playing next to the same guys he played next to last year. But the reason this position group is lower for me is that he's had a lot of time to prove himself, and I'm not sure he's more than an average player at the NFL level, if that. At times, it doesn't even look like that. And 2, there's no real solution or hope behind him like there is at some of these other positions that we're about to go over. Even if some of that is fleeting hope for one of the positions, it's still some hope. I don't really find there to be any hope at center if John Michael Schmitz struggles and gets even worse this year. The Greg Van Roten idea, it's something, but it's not great. And it's not something we really should want to see for a player that's mostly played guard in his career. And it's still a little bit of speculation to believe that he can play center for us. So this is definitely the weakest position group on the Giants. And unfortunately for me, I'll get into my next one and you can get into yours. 6 for me is one that kind of relies on the center position. It's offensive guard. This is the second weakest position group for me on the Giants roster. Now that's your whole interior offensive line that to me, now, can it get to an average level where they can compete because of it? Yes, but will it be a strength at any point this season? I highly doubt it. I mean, we're looking at guard. They signed John Runyon. It's a fine depth signing. It did exactly what you said it would do, I think, Nick, last year, that signing, him and Greg Van Roten. It gave them guys who can play at the NFL level at all. Not at all times the Giants had legitimate NFL players at guard and center over the last few years, and even at tackle, at guard and tackle, it should really, at least they have startable players. And that's what John Runyon is, a little bit above average, probably average, startable, fine player who won't make a lot of mistakes and won't kill you. Same thing for GVR. Fine player who won't make a lot of mistakes and kill you. There's a little bit of hope for me behind them at Evan Neal, I guess. Not a lot of hope, but some hope with what he can do in the run game. There's some hope with Jake Kubis inside the building. I'm not ready to go there yet. But outside of that, there's not a lot of hope behind them at this position either. It's fine. It's suitable. It's better than it's been in the past. But this is not a strength of the Giants roster.
That was a good breakdown, Dan. I would also want to throw Aaron Stinney's name in there because he's another player who's maybe like slightly below average, but passable. Not a bad player. Like if you need to start Aaron Stinney, it's been a lot worse in the world of the New York Giants, right? So having Aaron Stinney there, along with Jake Kubis, who the Giants are high on, behind GVR and John Runyon. It's not a terrible situation, but I also have them second to last. And it's also mostly because Marcus Bowe, I have him in the category of offensive tackle. Like when you do an exercise like this, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, this guy fits in two different categories. Like you kind of just got to be like, all right, he's going to be here. So I have Marcus Bowe as a tackle. But as we know, Jermaine Illuminor could kick inside and he could play guard, right? And that could solidify the guards and make them a more palatable and a much more competent unit overall. But just looking at the depth chart right now, offensive guard, I would like it to be a little bit stronger, but it's still much better than it has been in the past, as you just said.
Yeah, like this interior offensive line can play about average as they did those first 6 weeks before the Thomas injury. And that's like fine enough. You can move an offense still. It's not derailing your offense like this O-line has done at times, but it's still not where we want them to be. And it's not like they really added much hope on the interior offensive line this draft class. So they're kind of tabling that for future years, which is fine. They can't tackle everything every offseason.
I agree. Now, my third to last, so this would be fifth to make it easier, is tight end. Now, a lot of this is based off the fact that Theo Johnson, we have an idea of Theo Johnson because he was excellent at the combine, tested in like the 99th percentile. He's a freak athlete. He's like 265, 270 pounds. He can block his ass off. He's a high energy guy. I love that. He's coming off the foot injury and he still has some to prove. Love Chris Manhertz. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about Chris Manhertz. He's basically a second offensive lineman out there, or offensive tackle out there next to an offensive tackle. Love what he can do for the Giants in the run game. I like Daniel Bellinger. He doesn't see the field as much as I think you and I believe he should, or at least he didn't when Theo Johnson was around. And then behind them, you have, look, we like Greg Dulcich. We like the idea of Greg Dulcich. It hasn't worked out in Denver. And then Thomas Fedone, and then you have Jermaine Terry II as well. It's not necessarily a referendum on the group, but I like the depth and the consistency and the proven nature, as well as how young some of the players are in the other position groups, that it led to this ranking right here, where tight end is going to come fifth. I just need to see a little bit more from Theo Johnson, which I think we will see, but it hasn't necessarily happened yet. And I remain optimistic about this tight end room, but I had them ranked fifth. I'm curious as to where you have them.
Yeah, we never do these together, these exercises, but we do have some groupthink, I think, between us just from covering this team. I mean, this is going to happen when you watch a lot of tape, like the same tape that we're watching over and over again. This is my fifth pick too, tight end. Hopefully we have some differences in the top four. We'll see, Nick. I don't like when it's always exactly the same, but I feel similarly to you. I feel okay about the depth of where this position is at. And I don't think this is necessarily a major weakness. Like, I think this might be where you put the drawing point on this roster. Like, I think you're going to have the positions we went over already, guard and center, which are in a tier. And I think this position and another position we're about to go over are in another tier. And then I put the final three positions in their own tier, though that third one a little bit closer to that middle tier. But with that said, there's fine depth here. There's just not really a difference maker yet in the passing game. Could Theo Johnson potentially be that? I think so. I'm not sold any of the other guys could be, though. Obviously, like, we watched his tape and we like Greg Dulcich's tape in college, but he's been injured a lot. And I don't know where his career has gone, but he kind of strikes me as like Dable sees his new Lawrence Cager type with him. And maybe he'll get some Lawrence Cager type opportunities. Cager had some good opportunities in the past with the Giants in that role. Yeah. So that's something to keep an eye on. I wasn't
even in training camp last year. Right. Cager was on fire. Then he got hurt. Right. Like he was a part of the offense in training camp last season.
Dable looks at it as free access. It looks at these plays as like easy solutions, kind of layups using that move tight end. So I'm not turned off of that. Fedone is their developmental piece. I like that. We like Bellinger more than most, I think, but I think he's proven it on the field when he's gotten a chance to play. And Manhertz your second off the line. So they have a bunch of different guys who do different things with kind of the one high upside guy is Theo, but no one is a consistent playmaker yet in the passing game, I don't think. And I wouldn't call anybody outside of Manhertz a really dominant blocker in the run game. I like Bellinger as a blocker. I don't think he's a dominant blocker. Theo was okay as a blocker. So
I think Theo has the potential to be.
Sure.
Bellinger is an above average blocking tight end, but he's not like a dominant type of guy, right? Theo, I think, could be a dominant blocker if it just kind of comes to, he has the frame to do it, right? He has a frame to do it. And there were blocks on tape last year that I've seen that I was like, holy, like he drove that dude into the frame.
Yep.
Yeah. But Manhertz is one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL.
But he tips off your plays, so you don't really want to rely on him to be on the field all the time. So it's not exactly that package.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. This, the great year of 2025, is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE.
So yeah, where are we at with this is where it gets interesting. So those are our bottom three. Center was seventh for us. Guard was sixth for us. Tight end was fifth. For fourth for you, where are you at?
I'm at running back.
Okay.
Fourth
So we finally found a difference, but that's good.
Okay,
Let you
yeah.
break that down.
So I was very close here with running back in my next one, which I'll go over here in a little bit. Love Tyrone Tracy Jr., love the addition of Cam Scadaboo, and I like Devin Singletary as the third. It's still a young freaking room, and Devin Singletary is your only veteran. I think Scadaboo can fill that role as that 220-pound running back who can go in between the tackles, efficient footwork, hand lower and run behind his pads and be the physical guy that this room lacked last season, what we wanted Eric Gray to be. I don't really think that's Eric Gray's game either. Eric Gray's more of a one cut, going to make you miss in a phone booth, but lacks an overall speed that I think we want in the running back room. But it's still just young and unproven. And you're looking at a veteran in Devin Singletary, who a lot of people are already writing off. I like Singletary, but he's a smaller type of back, 5'8", like 200 pounds, right? And the other, like, I'll go over some of those other position groups a little bit later. I mean, they'll factor into this, and I'm sure I know where you're going to go with your next one. But I looked at that position group, which is quarterback. If I'm just going to tip my hand for what my third one is, I just like that they added a future Hall of Famer. They added another guy in Jameis Winston, and they drafted somebody. So to me, there's just more of a, hey, we had a problem here. We filled that problem out. This is the most important position in all of sports, and now we have options at that position group. Whereas at running back, it's like, I like Tyrone Tracy Jr. a lot, fumbles the football a lot. Cam Scadaboo fumbles the football a lot. Devin Singletary fumbles the football a lot. And I'm not trying to shit on these guys. I really do appreciate their games, but like, I don't know right now if any of those guys are I don't know if any of them are difference makers, right? But I think collectively they can be. I'm hoping Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Cam Scadaboo can be that. And I'm not saying that the Giants have a quarterback that's a difference maker, but I think it's difficult to judge those two position groups next to each other. Yeah. It's just that the Giants have three options now at quarterback that I at least have some sort of belief in. Mainly with Jackson Dart, it's because Dable believes in him, but like Jameis and Russ to some level that I'm comfortable putting them third over the running back position, which still has which still doesn't necessarily. I think it's a complete room, but none of those backs are quite complete yet. Does that make any sense?
It does make a lot of sense, and I'll just tip it off, and we'll talk about both positions. So you already have. I have quarterback fourth and running back third, so same type of idea as you. I would say this. I think you made a great case as to why I'm even reconsidering this to some extent. I still think I'd have running back above that for the main reason being there's a good chance that none of these three quarterbacks are actually going to be even average or above average for the Giants or for any team. Russ is on the downside of his career. Some people who watched the Steelers said that wasn't really above average play. He had good deep passing numbers. There wasn't much else to his game. Jameis, it's hard. He doesn't win a lot of football games, or he didn't last year, at least with the Browns. There was a lot of interceptions. I like Jameis more than most. I know you do too, but there's a chance to be made that he's not really an above average player. And then Jackson Dart could ultimately be nothing at the NFL level. A lot of rookie quarterbacks just end up being busts. Like they can't process the defense. Like Daniel Jones, for example, I shouldn't even bring him up. So I hope we can edit that out. You don't have to, though. We'll just stop talking. But like any of these quarterbacks, like if they can't read a defense, they end up being nothing at the NFL level. So we are still remain to be seen if Jackson Dart can read an NFL defense fast enough, process things pre to post snap. And there's still a possibility he can't. For me, on the flip side of that, with somebody like Cam Scadaboo, I don't personally see too much of a path toward him not succeeding. Now, obviously, if the fumbles get worse or continue, that's a problem. And if he can't figure out pass protection, he'll be a limited player in how he can be used. But in that way, he can be used as that early down runner or just any down runner when you're running the football. Or even in my mind, if you're not, don't want to use him pass protection, have him run routes. Have the running back be a part of your offense that runs routes because he is an advantage there too. And he will get open on broken plays and help your quarterback, whether that be Dart or Russell. I think he'll be very effective at the NFL level. I think it's easier to play running back at the NFL level. I think it's easier to transition to that position. So that's basically the thing that won this over for me. Like, I think Tracy can play at the NFL level at an above average level. I think Scadaboo can. I honestly feel like Singletary at times can too. So it's an easier position to play. So I feel more comfortable with it. Maybe if I adjusted it down to that and played that context in, I could see that happening. But man, I don't feel like we're locked in at quarterback yet with now. I'm still happy, by the way, Nick. One final point on this. I'm still happy that we could even have the conversation of quarterback being in the middle of our offensive position group rankings after last year when it was dead last when we did this with Jones, Locke, and DeVito.
It's been dead last for, well, probably at least 3 or 4 of the last 6 years, right?
Yeah.
The offensive line was pretty rough early on. And I agree with your overall point. I'm actually, you swayed me for sure that I think I'd flip those two. It's just, for me, it's difficult to really analyze quarterback with those other position groups, right? So It's just like, as long as you get several options in there, I feel so much more confident about the group, just because it's not like, hey, you're relying on a guy you don't trust. Let's put in a guy who we know can't run the offense. Like, hopefully Dart or hopefully Jameis can at least run the offense. But your overall point that I'm not confident in Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or Jackson Dart either. But I'm confident in Tyrone Tracy Jr., Cam Scadaboo, and Devin Singletary to run the rock. But there's so many running backs that I would be confident to run the rock, whereas there's like just a very, very small number of quarterbacks that I'd be confident to run an offense. It's just the nature of the two position groups.
Yeah, it's true. And that's ultimately maybe a point of emphasis here. It's just difficult to rank quarterback, but it does feel like, man, the difference between having, and we didn't even mention DeVito right there in our breakdown. It is what it is. I guess he was there in the OTAs, whatever will happen, see what happens with that. But, the difference between Jones, Locke, and DeVito versus Jameis, Russ, and Dart is night and day. Like, you could make the case, honestly, Nick, that Dart is the best of the three that were on the roster last year, even already. Like, even if he can't read a defense, just because he's a much more natural thrower of the football than any of those three, and much more accurate than any of those three, and can actually move and actually has ounces of talent to him. Not that those guys don't have some talent, but it was never actualized. And both Locke and Jones really struggled to read post snap, pre to post snap. Like, if that's the, and even so, like Russell Wilson, on the downside of his career, he still ran a good offense last year. He still had plus touchdown interception ratios by a good margin every single year of his career, including last year. He still had unbelievable deep passing numbers and backed up by the tape last year. And Jameis, even to my extent, he throws a lot of picks, but he can move the freaking ball. He led the NFL in air yards by miles. He threw for 300 yards all the time. Like, it's a different level of quarterback play to me.
Yeah, and I think I weigh that into it. I probably shouldn't, because it's independent of this exercise, but I certainly did initially, because I am more excited about this quarterback room relative to what we've experienced as Giant fans. But your point does stand that, like, I'm not really necessarily confident in any of these three quarterbacks still. It's not like the Giants have this figured out for sure. They have plans in place, which is like, holy shit, thank you. We have plans in place, right? That's why you run a football team.
Right.
But no, but it's not necessarily a certainty. Now, on to my second. I'm curious as to how you view this.
Yeah.
My second is wide receiver. Now, you have the superstar Malik Neighbors. You have Darius Slayton. You have Wandale. That's your 11 personnel package. You have Jalen Hyatt in the wings. Maybe you'll have Gabe Davis soon.
Right.
Who knows? And if he's already signed by the New York Giants, then you have Gabe Davis. If people are listening to this, because we're recording this a little bit before we're going to release it.
Yep.
And I look at the 11 personnel package. It's fine, right? The Giants brought back little Jordan Humphrey after releasing him, just some roster stuff. You have Zach Pascal. Who knows who's going to make this team? Bryce Ford Wheaton. But the main thing is you have star power. You have a 1A. You have an alpha. You have possibly a top 5 wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. And you have a good 1B, if you want to call him a 2, that's fine, and Darius Slayton. And then the gadget guy, if you want to call him that, in Wandale. So overall, I think it's a respectable wide receiver room, although it's not necessarily the deepest wide receiver room, because we haven't necessarily seen anything from Jalen Hyatt quite yet.
It's a fun debate ranking the Giants roster because you really get into this specifically with this position. It's the most fun wide receiver. It's also my second ranked position.
Okay.
And it's really fun because you have to weigh the value of how much do you value in a room having a top five, what I believe is a top five receiver in the NFL. I honestly believe from the film, from the numbers, the advanced stats really back it up. The film also really backs it up. Neighbors is already one of the five best receivers in the NFL. It's just my opinion. I could be wrong, could be overrating him, but this is how I see it. I think you can line him up inside, outside. I think he beats every type of coverage. And I think more importantly, he's proven he can be a focal point of an offense when entire defense knows the ball is coming to you. That's not easy to do. So how do I weigh that versus the rest of the room? I like Slayton more than most. I think we like him a lot from what we've seen on tape. Wandell's a player who was really good at Kentucky in the vertical game, and it's non-existent in the NFL. Could that come back with players like Winston and Russ and Dart throwing it to him, all vertical throwers? Maybe. That would be a really good thing if it did happen. And then Hyatt is an unknown. Maybe they sign Gabe Davis. To me, the idea of what Neighbors can do for that room really boosts this up and makes this one of the better rooms. I would personally rather have Neighbors and those guys than, two average receivers as my 1-2. Because I think when you have that one alpha guy, it tilts coverage in his direction. It gets defenses moving, putting pieces of their defense in different areas of the field that allow other areas of the field to open up for the Giants offense. And all of that is exciting to me.
It's very exciting. And again, this is another reason why I'm excited that the Giants brought back Darius Slayton as well, because I know Darius Slayton can feast on those one-on-ones.
Right.
Like Darius Slayton has some issues with drops sometimes. He's not the biggest contested catch guy, but he knows how to create separation. And that's one of the number one traits that you want in your wide receiver. Can you get open? Can you uncover against zone? Can you find the soft spots? Can you uncover against man? Darius Slayton is athletic enough. He's a nuanced route runner. He understands how to do all of those things. And if he can feast on the one-on-ones, Wandell can also do that underneath. You're going to have Malik possibly requiring Cloud, possibly requiring multiple sets of eyes on him. I think the rest of the Giants supporting cast at wide receiver, they're good enough to take advantage of most defenses in the NFL if teams decide to play the Giants in that manner, right? Against Malik Neighbors. So I'm glad they actually retained Darius, because if Darius wasn't here, what are we doing? And I also want to ask you this. If Jalen Hyatt, if they believed in Jalen Hyatt, do the Giants retain Darius Slayton? Like, was that a slight against Jalen Hyatt, the retention of Darius Slayton?
I don't think so. I think it was a nod to Slayton, the work he's put in.
I agree. Yeah.
To be honest, and the consistency he's put in. I know some people don't find it consistent because he has drops, but he's been a consistent player for this team and probably a locker room guy they didn't want to lose as well. So I actually like Slayton a lot, and I think he boosts this room as well. But we'll get to our number one ranked position. It's crazy to have it here.
I know.
We never maybe thought we'd get here, but I really feel confident about our offensive tackle group. When it comes to Andrew Thomas, a player who we probably are now higher on than fans because recency bias and fans are really worked up about the injuries. I'm just hoping that injuries tend to be a lot of luck, and he plays a full season this one and the next. It's more possible than fans believe, a lot more possible. And when he's on the field, Nick, that's all I'm going to go by. When he's on the field, Andrew Thomas is still one of the best offensive tackles in football. I put him right up there with Malik Neighbors as far as what I said before, top 5 at his position group. I think Jermaine Illuminor is clearly an above average right tackle at the NFL level, and he made that clear and obvious on tape, even kicked over to the left side and played okay. And now they even have a developmental tackle who I really like, Marcus Bell. I understand he went in the 5th round, but to me, he was more of a 3rd round talent and a really good developmental piece who, if he just improves his anchor, is going to be a starting at right tackle at the NFL level, maybe a steal for the Giants, an absolute steal in this draft, like Zach Tom was at a Wake Forest for the Packers. So they have not only a top 5 player, they have an above average player at the other position, and they have a guy waiting in the wings. This is as good as it's got. Plus, we're not even mentioned like Hudson and Stone Forsythe, whatever happens with them.
Yeah, this was an easy number one. Like, I didn't really even consider any other position groups. Like, it was like, oh, offensive tackles number 1. They have Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor. That's a good tandem. Like, teams are looking at the Giants depth chart, like that's a solid tandem at tackle. I wish the interior was a little bit better. Again, that was 7th and 6th in this exercise, but that's a good tandem. And then behind them, you have Bo as a developmental guy, as you said, and then you also have Forsythe and James Hudson. It's just the Giants poured assets into the position group, which I like, and all of this with the Giants also burning the 7th overall pick in that 2022 draft in Evan Neal, who is now inside and grouped in with the offensive guard position for this exercise. So again, man, I'm happy with that. Again, they got to stay healthy. It's a lot of this is contingent on Andrew Thomas's health, but Jermaine Oluminor is a very respectable starter in the National Football League, and the Giants have him as their right tackle with a top 5 guy as their left tackle. So it's an easy number 1 spot, the offensive tackle for me.
Yeah, so just to recap, here's how Nick and I rank the Giants position groups on the offense side of the ball. Number 1, we have offensive tackle. We both agree it's kind of an tier of its own. Number 2 for us is both wide receiver. Number 3 for me was running back. Number 3 for Nick was quarterback. Number 4 for me was quarterback. Number 4 for Nick was running back, kind of grouped together there. And then we have tight end, offensive guard, offensive center. So this gives you an idea, hopefully, of where the Giants are at from a strengths and weaknesses standpoint on the offensive side of the ball. We'll move forward as we go through the offseason. More content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning into the Big Blue Banter podcast. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please rate on iTunes. Please leave a comment. That's 4 things that we need you to do. Help us grow the show. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week or weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.